If my body type could be like Shalane's, would I want it to? Sure. I just don't think that would be healthy for me. So it's not about looking like everyone else. It's about being healthy, because running is just part of this lifestyle that I'm living of health.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, whose favorite fancy dress costume was Pocahontas, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 56 of the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited that you are here right now, and I hope you're going to enjoy this episode. So last week you heard from Sarah Bowen-Shea and Dimity McDowell of Another Mother Runner. And although these two primarily work with, you guessed it, mother runners, it was a fun and interesting conversation with something for everyone. And so if you missed that one, be sure to go back and check it out. So today I have someone I know you're going to love. Allie Kieffer burst onto the scene last year when she ran a 2:29 in the New York City Marathon, finishing second American to Shalane, who won the race, of course, as we know. But she also has gained publicity recently for her stance on weight and why she's not going to be bullied to lean down to fit with society's expectations of what a runner is, especially being an elite runner. You know, she says that her running speaks for itself, and we have a big chat about that today, and I think you're going to really enjoy this one. But before I get to that, over the last few weeks, I've been telling you about the Running for Real podcast series. You know, the ones I worked really hard to get finished before my daughter arrived, but then she came 3 weeks early, so I never got the chance to tell you about. Well, I'm taking the month of April and the first week of May to tell you about them. There are 6 series I have: beginners, coming back from injury, marathon, nutrition, pregnancy and postpartum, and mental training. Each one contains 5 to 7 episodes of specific, direct, to-the-point interviews with some of the best experts in the world, along with a specific guide with advice from those guests to you on a particular topic. I worked really hard on these series, and I'm so proud of the result. They're unlike anything else out there, and those who do have them so far have loved them, particularly this one I'm going to tell you about today. So today I'm telling you about the marathon training series. Seemed kind of appropriate, as Allie absolutely crushed it in the New York Marathon and gave us all hope that we can all make huge jumps and exceed our expectations. In this marathon series, I have some really big, powerful names on the show, including Amby Burfoot, Ben Rosario, Esther Atkins, Roberto Mangi, Luke Humphrey, and Laura Fountain. And some of the things that I asked were, you know, why do things always go wrong in our marathons? How often should we do speed work? How do I know what marathon pace feels like? How do I handle taper crazies? How do I stop myself going out too fast? And how do you get through the tough part when you want to quit? And many, many more questions. I tried to ask each question that we all have about the marathon. Each episode is focused on a specific part of the marathon or a topic within marathon training. And there are a lot of workout ideas for you to take and try in your own training. This one has been received really well by the community. And if you're training for a marathon or planning on doing one in the fall, it's going to go a long way to help you get ready. You can find out more in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 56 or by visiting tinamuir.com/marathon-series. So that's enough from me. Let's have a quick word from Body Health before we get to the episode. Have you tried Body Health Perfect Amino yet? They were a vital part in making sure I recovered during my heavy training as an elite runner. And guess what? Now I'm back to running, so are they back in my cycle. So I am really excited to have them back. You can find out how you can get 10% off and just what they can do for you later in the show. Allie, I am so excited to have you here on my podcast. I was just telling you a few minutes before that my listeners have been dying to hear from you after you've become kind of their hero, their role model over the last, 6 months. But thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So for those who do not know you, I don't know how they could, unless they were living under a rock, but you kind of burst onto the scene, especially here in the US, during I guess after the New York City Marathon in 2017, where you finished fifth in around a 2:29, shaving. I'm going to let you tell the listeners how many minutes you shaved off your PB or your PR. Because it's actually, I've seen two different numbers depending on which one you want to count, which we have a rather interesting one to talk about a bit later, which was actually your PR before. But firstly, I want to ask you about that race. Tell us, how it kind of went down and whether you were even aware that you were running as fast as you were running, or were you just kind of like taking it in and I'll see what happens when I cross the finish line.
Yeah. So I went through halfway, like dead on what I wanted to run, because I wanted to run 2:33. And
okay.
So I was exactly even halfway.
Were you looking at your watch throughout, or you just looked at the halfway mark?
I was looking at my watch, but every split like wasn't even. It was more like up and down, but around where I wanted to be.
Okay.
And I knew going in that I was not going to go with the leaders. Like that was never my game.
Yeah.
So, but I really started catching up to people quicker than I thought I would. And then I think that drove me to kind of pick up my pace because I wanted to beat them.
It's like a blood in the water thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I thought I wouldn't really catch them until like 30 or 35K, but it was a little over halfway where I started catching up to people, or like saw, some big names in my sights. And I was still feeling really good. And I was kind of thinking to myself, like, why is everybody running so slow today? Maybe this is my lucky day. And so I just obviously felt really, really good and had a great day. People weren't running slow. But so then I just kind of like, I wanted to get to mile 20 until I really felt like pain was setting in. Mm-hmm. I think the first time I felt it was like mile 19. Mm-hmm. But I was never really in excruciating pain. Like I haven't had a marathon like that yet.
That was the whole race. You didn't even feel that way?
Yeah.
Oh, so it really was one of those true runner high races.
Yeah. Okay. It was just an incredible day.
Yeah.
But I still like held back a lot until the last like 2 or 3 miles, because I dropped like a 5:08 last mile, I think.
Wow. And what is your PR in the mile, just for reference?
I think it's 4:37.
Okay. So still getting pretty close to that for the end of a marathon. Okay.
Yeah. I did in my training, I kept a lot of the speed. So I think that helps me at the end of the race.
Okay. And then you said, you were kind of aware that people were you were closing in on people and wondering if they were running slow. So after the halfway, were you still looking at your watch, the whole way through, every mile it beeped? Or were you just kind of like at that point chasing runners and just racing essentially? So
I don't have it just beep at each mile marker, but I just look at it whenever I feel like, hey, like what am I running?
Okay. And does it show average, or what does it show, your screen?
It shows my average, yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't like to like actually, if you're in the moment, be taken away from the moment to have it beep at you. Mm-hmm. You want to kind of like get rid of some of those miles if you can just tune out.
Yeah. So. No, that's good. And I was just curious about that. And then was there any point when you saw, maybe this average pace starting to go down, and you realized you were, closing in on 2:30 on a tough course, and then, under it, was there any point where you kind of were freaking out thinking, I'm going to blow up, or what if I've messed this up? Or were you just kind of in that moment, just enjoying it, and that didn't even cross your mind?
Yeah, there was one point when I was with Diana Curry, and I thought, man, this is getting hard. We're still like have 6 miles left of this race. Maybe I'm going a little too hard, but I didn't want to go behind her because I had done all this work to catch up. And so I didn't want to let her like drop me. So it was more of I try to beat her mentally than so much physically. And then I kind of like got out of that feeling once we caught Stephanie Rothstein. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling good again. Mm-hmm. So I think people have those patches in the marathon, and that's pretty normal.
And was there anything you kind of told yourself so that you didn't freak out? Like, I know that many of the listeners, and myself included, you may, be running faster than you think, and it can be difficult to stay in the moment and not kind of like think about the finish line or think about, oh, I wonder what I'm going to do, and kind of get away from that moment. Was there anything you did to keep yourself there while you were doing it?
Yeah. So I never calculated like, oh, I'm running X pace, so I'm going to hit this time.
Okay.
And I knew that I was under the pace I wanted to run. So I was like, you're doing amazing. Like if you slow down here, it is fine because you're still ahead of target.
Okay.
So I didn't know I was going to run 2:29. Like I didn't know what that time is going to work out to be. I just knew that I was running better than I had planned. And I felt like I could handle what I was running like for the rest of the race.
Yeah. And so you did. And like I said, a 2:29, which is amazing. Finishing second American to Shalane, which is pretty damn cool. And taking over 15 minutes off your PB. Now for runners who are listening and they're thinking, I could never, shave that drastic of an amount of time off my marathon. I'm never going to make that big of a jump. What would you say to them, knowing that, 2:44 was your PR before, correct?
Yes.
Okay, 2:44. That's still a smoking fast time, and at that point, many people would be happy with taking a minute or two off each time. But what would you like to say about kind of not closing yourself into I can only run this, or I can only shave this much off, to kind of let go of expectations?
Yeah, so I think it's like set yourself up for the minute or two PR, but don't close yourself into this box of can only run X. Mm-hmm. I think that's just a lot of the mental training.
Yeah.
And it's been one of my strengths, I think, like for a long time, is that I don't if I'm feeling great, I'm going to run a great time. If I'm, feeling like poop, I'm just going to hang on for dear life. Mm-hmm. But that's all like the mantras you tell yourself during the race and a belief in yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think even Shalane knows what her top end ability is, right? She's still searching for it. I think we're all searching for it. So, mm-hmm. I mean, I don't ever think like 2:29 is the best I can ever run. Maybe I've gotten to that point before where I've gone years without PRing, and then you get into a plateau and you think, well, maybe I've just hit the top. But yeah, I think that if you're still continuing to improve, don't box yourself into, I've already hit my upper limit and I can only get a 1 or 2 minute improvement. But I think it would be kind of crazy if you've trained for a marathon, to try to train for 15 minutes faster. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For most people. Yeah. It's like, I didn't train to run, I didn't think I was training to run 15 minutes faster. I also, when I ran the 2:44, I hadn't done marathon training. Mm. So I think my body's just built for the marathon. But I try to set myself up for success instead of failure. So I go into a race with what am I capable of running? What's my strategy to do this successfully? And then talk to myself throughout the race instead of going for the 2:29 when really I'm only ready for a 2:33.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you did have a goal of what you wanted to run. You would like to run, a few minutes faster than that if you could, but at the same time, I don't think you're approaching this in the same way that a lot of people do with it has to be this time. If I don't run this time, I'm going to, be the worst runner ever. What am I going to do? This is my last chance. You kind of weren't making it this ultimatum, which I think is what a lot of runners fall into the trap of doing. So that's kind of what I wanted to get across here is that, yes, Allie did make a big jump, but part of that was because she didn't have that kind of do or die thing attached to running a time like that.
Well, sometimes I even think so I want to run this time, but what happens if I don't? Nothing in my life really changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you there's no reason to have that do or die mentality about a race result, because it should be about the effort. Mm-hmm. And really what I did in the race was I figured out what effort, what I could feel like for 26 miles. Mm-hmm. And then the time on the watch didn't matter. It was how's Allie feeling? Okay, I can keep going at this pace. I controlled it that way rather than just by the watch.
Absolutely. I am all about that, and everyone knows that already. So that's good to hear you say that. So how did it feel afterwards? I mean, obviously Shalane was the primary focus here, having won the race, but you kind of became the poster child overnight for hard work, believing in yourself, and kind of expecting the unexpected. Essentially, you became an overnight celebrity. How did that feel to you kind of before you were kind of barely able to kind of continue as a pro runner? Thankfully, you had a chance from Nike. They gave you some support. But how did it feel knowing that you'd become just this, face of running just overnight?
So I think originally it was super cool. And everyone would be in the podcast, and interviews. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Before New York City, no one wanted to talk to me. And then I am I'm like, ooh, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can keep this up. So it's really exciting. I feel like it's nice to have a platform. I want to be a good advocate, but I also think there's kind of a lot of pressure that goes along with that to continuing to like say the right things and even just the way you word something or, people on social media, like my followers are amazing. I don't have a troll out there. Like everyone says something positive, but most people do. And I think after time, you could say the wrong thing or just things get funny or you do get a troll. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
I want to keep people just the way it is.
Yeah. I totally hear you. And definitely have the same thing with my community as well. And although, it's hard because you said about becoming an activist, and you definitely are. We're going to go on to talk about that in a minute. But the more you start to kind of speak out and talk about things that maybe make people a little bit uncomfortable, that is where you start to get to a point where, yes, you can make a huge difference, but that's where the people start coming in and saying things. So it will be an interesting test for you to see how that goes. And I know over the years I've made the odd political remark from time to time. And that's when people kind of jump on me like, hey, I don't like you anymore. And kind of I've got some negative stuff as well as the positive stuff. So it is very difficult to find kind of a good line to be on. But we're going to go talk about that in a second. And it is interesting to hear that you have experienced that pressure, because I think that's something that many of the listeners maybe don't realize. They think, oh, it would be amazing to have all these followers. But you're right. You have to keep coming up with things. You have to keep making sure that you're, like you said, wording things. Maybe it's something like, for me, I'm saying about getting back to fitness right now and how, I've got a long way to go till I'm fit. But then for other people, what I'm running right now is really, really fast. So you have to be careful kind of not wording things to offend people. So sorry, I didn't mean to go off tangent there. But I want to talk about, before we get onto this activist stuff, this indoor marathon, because it blows my mind. I cannot wrap my brain around how you could do this. Tell us about this indoor marathon. What possessed you to do a marathon on an indoor track, and kind of tell us about that experience.
So I was basically in 2016. I was just doing a bunch of races for money while everyone else was trying to do the Olympic trials. Mm-hmm. So I thought this was a fantastic idea because I was in pretty good shape, but not Olympic trial shape. So I could, kind of take advantage that people wouldn't show up at the money races. And then I was coaching people in New York City, and one of my athletes was like, oh, there's this indoor marathon, and the record is like 2:53, I think it was. And if you break it, you get $6,000. And I was like, $6,000? Like, that's a lot more than these other races I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I'm in. So I signed up like 5 days before the race or something. And I was actually the only girl in the race, but there were like 6 or 7 men, and they were also going for the world record. And the thing was, you got the 6,000 if you broke the world record, and nothing if you didn't break it. So all of the men,
motivation.
Yes, all of them were going to try to break it. So in typical man style racing, like they all went out as a pack.
What was the men's one?
I feel like it was like low 220s.
Okay, all right. So continue. They went out as a pack.
Yeah, and so I just kind of tuned out on my own race. And ran got locked into their race and just thought that it was exciting. And they were playing music and people were drinking because they had free alcohol. So it just was kind of like easy to tune out. And I do at like some point, I was like, excuse me, like, what am I running? Because I knew they like each lap.
They were counting it for you, the laps?
They were counting each lap, okay. And I knew each lap was like under the pace because I had figured out, what's 2:53 or 2:51 or something. And then what's that pace for every 200 meters? But I didn't really know like, okay, well, overall, like what my projections run at the moment, which like when you're outside, your Garmin does that. But when you're on a track, your Garmin is inaccurate. But yeah, then they started, when I got closer to the finish, they started announcing, and I ended up running 2:44. So I was way under the world record, but it was the money that motivated me.
Yeah.
I was working as a nanny in New York City, and I really loved the job, but I wanted to move with my boyfriend, and he lived in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to save up money to quit my job, and then we were going to take a vacation and then find new jobs.
Okay. So this kind of sounds like one of those movies where people are just kind of like trying to scrape together their money, and then they're going to go on this crazy trip, and it's going to be the adventure of a lifetime. But I guess it took off in a different way in the end. But a few more things about that marathon. How many laps was that?
211.
How did that not, when it said like 112 to go, I mean, were you not ever like, I'd like to hear how your mindset was with the monotony.
I know, it's so funny because I won't run on a treadmill. Like, I hate treadmill running. You're actually moving on the indoor track. I didn't feel like the laps were like the worst part about it. I just thought that the beginning you want to fly because you're used to racing a mile on the indoor.
That's true.
That was the most difficult part. I didn't think it was, you just have to like stop thinking about the laps. Like, you're not going to look at your laps every time, just zone out, which I'm really great at, just thinking about other things, because I feel like I have my best ideas when I'm running. Mm-hmm. So just kind of tune out of that you're actually in a race and just go on a run.
And that's what you did. And that still, I can't understand how you managed it, but very impressed with that. And I'm sure a lot of other people are. I mean, I don't know how many listeners have actually run on an indoor track, but it is 200 meters long. So, or it was a 200 track, right? Not a 300. Yeah. 200 meter long, and definitely a lot of laps there. So, okay, I want to get on to the kind of meat here, the things that I wanted to talk about the most, which is kind of, you've become the poster child for positive body image, not letting your weight define you, not letting people tell you what you need to look like. So, but you haven't always been this way. You have struggled with kind of feeling the need to look like, quote unquote, everyone else. But what's snapped inside of you, to make you finally say, you know what, I don't care. I'm doing what works for me, and that's it. After years of dealing with comments like that and, messing around with your eating because of that.
So after 2016, the year of like running for prize money, in 2017, I just decided I wanted to run for myself because I love running. And I do it because it makes me happy. Like, I enjoy being out there. And so I don't think it was really something that snapped, but kind of just over time and like taking ownership of like that I'm in control of my mind. And that it's funny, my boyfriend says often, like, someone can't make you feel a certain way, like you allow them to.
Yeah.
So just like taking that control back, and it's about me. And I've been every size. I've been bigger, I've been smaller. Like, I haven't actually run faster because I was smaller. Like, this season on the track. So, I took 6 months off in the end of 2016 into the beginning of 2017. And then I started running track, and I had some extra weight just because I hadn't really been running. But I was running really well. And then I ended up running the world standard in a 10K, which was a PR for me, but I was heavier than I was when I had run my like fastest time before. So it was like, then that's evidence that it doesn't matter what size you are. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So of course, like, I'm still self-conscious even to this day. Like, it hasn't completely gone away. If my body type could be like Shalane's, would I want it to? Sure. I just don't think that would be healthy for me. Mm-hmm. So it's not about looking like everyone else. It's about being healthy, because really running is just part of this lifestyle that I'm living of health.
Yes, exactly. And what would you say to someone listening who maybe isn't sure what their body type is? They maybe have been essentially forcing it into the Shalane kind of body for years, but they know deep down that maybe that hasn't been done in the most healthy way. When you say, you're trying to be healthy, what is it that you mean by that? Just to kind of really reiterate it for someone who feels like they're not sure what their body shape is.
Yeah. So, I think it's pretty simple. Like, you eat mostly vegetables, you eat whole foods, you exercise regularly, you don't drink a lot of alcohol, you don't smoke. Like, it's just actually just being a healthy person. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you'll find a weight that you fit into. I've also logged on my food before, and that drove me crazy, and it makes me just eat more. Like, I just think we overthink how to be a healthy person. Like, what does that mean? And like every nutritionist would agree, like eat mostly vegetables, eat whole foods, don't eat too much. And I think as Americans, we probably eat too much. Usually like our portion size are bigger, but I just think it's a simple equation that we don't need to go overthinking.
Mm-hmm. And do you still allow yourself to have, treats and indulgences? Like what kind of things do you allow to have in? Because, we do have an issue right now with orthorexia. I did talk about this in another podcast episode, which there'll be a link in the show notes for listeners. But, there's been a lot of talk lately that you don't want it to be 100% clean all the time. So what do you allow yourself that, you can show other people that you do eat these foods, even running a 2:29 marathon?
So like desserts and stuff like
whatever.
that?
I mean, chips or whatever your kind of food is.
Anything. If like I keep healthy food in the house, if I want something else, I'll just go get it. I'm kind of lazy. So like I have to be really, really interested in that food to go to the store and get it. But I just don't keep junk food at the house. And like dessert in marathon training, I would bake a sweet potato and then put peanut butter and banana and caramelized banana over it. Cause it's like whole foods, but it was tasty and sweet and satisfying. So I think like you don't have to say no to anything. Like I went through a phase where it was really like I would worry about what I was going to eat out at a restaurant. Like what healthy thing could I get at this restaurant?
Yeah.
And so if you can't eat out at a restaurant and if you're having anxiety about going out to eat, you're not healthy. Like that's not balanced.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's just like, you should be able to do daily activities and not get stressed about them.
Yep. Good. Thank you so much for explaining. And what about, this is something I've been interested to talk to you about because it's something I have noticed and it's bothered me over the years. But now you are, being invited to all these places and spending time with lots of other elites. I know this is not every runner and it's, that most people cannot sustain a long running career without eating this way. But do you see it amongst other people, other runners that you run with, other elites that people kind of very limit their food or are very, very particular, obsessive almost about their food to make sure that it is exactly what they want and perfect. When, you, like you said, you're kind of just eating what you feel till you're full, enough, as much as you want. How do you kind of go against that? Or do you even see that amongst other elites?
I feel like there are some people who, are really particular and like have a narrow mindset on what they can eat. And then there are other people who don't eat too much, but kind of will eat anything. I also feel like you have to, like for anyone to have a long-term career, like I'm sure I don't know Shalane Flanagan personally, but I'm sure she's eating enough to recover, right? Like you can't just have salad. I think that what I've seen is that people are eating enough food so that they can recover. And they're lean because partly that's their body type, partly they're not overeating. They're eating like just like what they need, right? Like I feel like sometimes people they undereat and then they just keep getting injured. And you can't make the professional ranks if you still do that. Like, I think that's very amateur. That's what people do in high school and college and maybe have success sometimes, but you cannot make it a consistent level if you're not eating enough.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you've been able to kind of stand against that and show people that it is okay to eat, what you want to eat and have good foods, but then have enough of those good foods to fuel your body correctly. And I think things are changing. And now that you are kind of in the limelight, do you ever feel kind of more of a pressure that others are judging you? Or, now you are a professional runner that has, photos being taken of you everywhere that, they might catch you at a bad angle and it makes you feel self-conscious. You mentioned you still have those thoughts, but just for people listening who think that, you never go through any of this, tell us a bit about those thoughts that you do experience and how you overcome them.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way sometimes. Like when I was in New York City with the New York City Half Marathon, I did a talk with self on body image and I took a bunch of pictures afterwards. And of course, people posted them on social media. And I was like, ooh, I don't really like that one or whatever. But that's what I look like. The picture is not lying. And I do feel like I'm. So if that's what I look like, that's what I look like. It's fine. I'm just like, someone told me that I met in Kenya. She was like, once I accepted that I don't have that body type, I'm not going to look like that. It was fine. And then that's what I've been able to accept. Like my body is just not ever going to be a twig. Mm-hmm. And really for after running, I don't want it to be a twig. Like I like that I have a full body. So, I mean, you can't just look at that one perspective of running. And I don't necessarily think that I would be a better runner if I didn't have the muscle I had. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's part of what is making me run so much better now. It's been a big change in past year is weight training. And that has definitely helped my performance. So could I be smaller? Maybe. I don't think that necessarily means I'd be faster. So I think that just women in general, not even particularly just runners, we are set up to just kind of be self-conscious people because we see beautiful skinny models that are airbrushed in magazines and like Barbies, and all of the images we get are just these very tiny women. And that isn't natural. So I think most of us are self-conscious to a certain degree, but that it's like what my boyfriend said, not letting someone take that power and make you feel that way. Yeah. Like have ownership that I don't have to feel that way. I am happy with my current self.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And your boyfriend needs to be an activist too, I guess, by the sound of it. He's got a lot of wisdom in there, especially for women. Now, I've seen you say that, you've been called, or you even refer to yourself as like a bigger runner, but to any normal person, you are very skinny. And I think that is something that comes into this a lot, is that we are surrounded by other runners who are varying levels of skinny. But then if you look at, the population as a whole, we are considered, very thin. So do you see that as part of the issue here, that, our world is essentially distorted because of who we surround ourselves with? And it just makes it more of an issue for us because we're not comparing ourselves to everyone else as a population. We're just seeing other people who are runners and envying parts of them that we don't have.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that we're of the narrow mindset of what you should look like, which I don't understand why. Because a lot of people, I feel like, hear that they don't look like a runner and don't know why we're discouraging people from leading a healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, so true. So what would your overall message to someone listening who constantly gets in the trap where they feel like they need to lose weight to run faster or look better, just they want to get down to a quote unquote race weight? What would be your overall advice to them?
How does someone know what the race weight is?
Well, I agree with you, but there are calculators that I know people do like to use that tell them.
That sounds horrible. No, don't do a calculator. No, that just doesn't make any sense. I would tell someone just to eat healthy, eat mostly vegetables, exercise regularly. Like I would not overdo, I need to be X weight. I think that's a trap that's going to have you run horribly and just put pressure on the running side of things. And most people are running because it brings them happiness. And I feel like being stressed about what you weigh to run faster doesn't actually make me happier. I think that running could be a great part of a healthy lifestyle, but sometimes we let it overrun the healthy part. And so if you're under eating and not recovering and then getting injured, you're not healthy. So just try to eat whole foods. It's very simple, and I think maybe taking the elite side out of it is actually even better. Of when I go to the grocery store, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to eat like Shalene Flanagan. I need to get everything in her cookbook and stalk her through her window and see what she's eating and be as lean as her. I just get healthy foods that are whole foods. If I don't know, if you look at something, you're like, what does this even come from? Mm-hmm. You can't tell, it's probably not healthy. It's just.
So then just one more thing related to that, how for someone who struggles with, they maybe know that they're not eating enough. They are eating mostly vegetables, whole foods, kind of maybe heading towards that orthorexia lifestyle where they are eating all those foods, just maybe not enough, or maybe not, having good fats and having foods that are high in calories that will get their calories up for the training they're doing. I can personally speak to this myself, knowing that the fact I had amenorrhea for 9 years clearly meant that I wasn't eating enough for my training, even though I felt like I was eating enough. I was eating a lot of food, and definitely a lot more than a lot of other runners I knew. I was eating more than them, but I still wasn't enough. So for someone listening right now who is thinking, I'm doing exactly what you're saying, Allie, but people are telling me I look too thin, or I'm too thin, or I do keep getting injured. How can they make sure they get enough? Or how would you really like to kind of drill in the thing that, it has to be about volume as well, and getting in enough calories?
Yeah. So, I think that there are definitely professional runners too that get that they're too skinny when I get that I'm too big. So we're all like ridiculed either way. Mm-hmm. Not everyone that looks too skinny is unhealthy either, right? Like, if you're not getting your period, that's a telltale sign that, something isn't right. And you have to like take all the inputs that you're getting. Like, if you don't have your period, then you need to change something. And like you said about fats, I think that a lot of Americans especially don't want fat, but fat is essential for your brain, for recovery, for power. Like, you need to be getting those healthy fats like an avocado. But everyone has a different sign, right? Like, I'm getting told I'm too big and other people too small. And you just have to take the inputs and feel yourself using the simple rules. I think that you can't really base it on just like how much you're running or how many calories you're having, because everyone's needs are different. Until you really figure out like what your body needs. I just feel like those calculators don't really do a great job of telling us what we individually need. So I wouldn't base it off of, the calculator says I need 1,500 calories, and then you eat 1,500 calories, or you eat more than the girl you live with and you think you're fine. Like, maybe your workload isn't the same. Maybe your metabolism isn't the same. Like, if there's something clear sign that your body's giving you, like, you need to change something. I know I skipped my period once in college and I immediately got a stress reaction. I'm not sure if that's what happened to you too, of having amenorrhea for so long, but your body obviously needs, like, it's unhealthy to be in that state too long and your bones will break down. Yeah,
no, I'm glad you mentioned it. I actually, mine was a bit of a weird case. I've never had like a bone injury. I've never really had many injuries. I was a healthy BMI. I had all the kind of things checked, but of being fine except for the amenorrhea. But on the other side of things, like you mentioned, I obviously wasn't doing enough for what my body needed to be functioning, even though I was getting away with not having injuries and things like that, which was unfortunate in a lot of ways because I could get away with it for longer without, the red flags coming. But I know that a lot of people listening do struggle with injuries and do kind of have things keep going wrong. And I'm glad you mentioned that those are telltale signs that something needs to change here. And you have to find out what works for you. And I think a big part of this that I notice for me is thinking about food. If you are constantly thinking about food, then you're probably still kind of holding back and not having enough. Whereas if you're eating foods like you mentioned, those whole foods where you're having like a giant plate of these foods and then you're finishing and you're satisfied and you're thinking that was a good meal, that's a whole different thing to kind of snacking on carrots and then half an hour later you're hungry again. So you have an apple and then half an hour later you're hungry again. If you're constantly thinking about eating and thinking about food, then it's probably another sign that it's time to kind of do something about it. So anything else you'd add?
No, I think that was great.
Okay. Okay. So finally, you've signed up with Oiselle. They are sponsoring you. Tell us a bit about why Oiselle was the right mindset, the right brand for the kind of mindset and person that you are.
I think they're very similar people. I think we're both activists, and like we kind of have this shared passion to lift other women up, and we're all a bit loud spoken. So they're just wonderful people, and their offer was really about investing in me as a person and not just as an athlete. And that was really big to me. They offered a family rather than just a sponsor. So I think all those reasons like made it a really easy decision for me.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Thank you so much. And may I ask, did you have the other brands chasing around as well?
I had a really interesting deal with Nike. That would be more of an influencer deal than like a professional athlete, which I thought was really cool. And I liked working with Nike before in New York City. Obviously, that went really well.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like I made the right choice with Oiselle.
Cool. All right. That's great. And then, so unfortunately, as of this recording, you have backed out of the London Marathon and the United New York City half with an injury. So will you tell us kind of what happened and why you had to make that decision?
Yeah. So I have a stress fracture in my second metatarsal of my right foot. So I had this great plan of just taking pain medication and still running New York City half. So I was in really good shape. But basically everyone said no to that idea. They thought it was crazy, which it was crazy.
Did they say what they think would have happened if you had tried to do that?
I would have totally broken the foot, I thought. I mean, it's speculation, but you can do a lot more damage and then you're out for a lot more time. So yeah, I have just been in the pool cross training and the elliptical and stuff, trying to continue keep the fitness so I can get back for track season. I did try the Alter-G yesterday, but my foot is not ready to go yet.
Okay.
So.
And what was it that you think that you did to cause this to happen?
So I think usually stress fractures, or I've had reactions before mostly, and it's, you increase intensity or mileage too much, too quickly, and over time the bone gets kind of worn down. And that didn't really happen this time, because usually I feel pain after I finish running. And so it kind of builds up and I know that a reaction's coming. Seems like maybe this fracture happened suddenly because there was absolutely no pain. And then all of a sudden one day it hurt so much. It was my last day in Kenya. I spent 7 weeks in Kenya training. And yeah, the last day I was like, oh, my foot feels funny. Maybe it's just the terrain, because often you're not in flat, easy terrain. It's all just rocky and it's not easy footing. So, but then as we kept running, my foot just hurt worse and worse. And at a certain point I was like, I don't think I can run in this anymore. And my pacer was like, oh, it's okay. Just keep going. I was like, no, too much pain. I need a taxi, get me out of here. So I took a motorbike home, and then I got a massage, and then I actually got on a flight back to the US because it was my final day. And when I was on the plane, I noticed my foot was swollen. So I don't know if that was from the massage, because we didn't massage the top, just the bottom of the foot. But yeah, it was, I haven't run since that day. So.
And so did you have any other signs while you were in Kenya that, maybe your body was being pushed too far, or nothing that you can see?
No, I felt 1,000 times better than I did on the lead up to New York City. I figured out some blood stuff after New York City that I think I was kind of fixing in Kenya, and I had been taking the iron supplements and that kind of stuff, and I felt really, really good, and I was recovering really well. No, it was going great. So I didn't feel like there were any signs. That's why I'm thinking maybe it was kind of not the typical buildup, but just I did too much. I did do 15K on the track the day before, and it was in the middle of a 115-mile week. So there was a lot, obviously there's a lot of intensity and mileage. So I don't know if you'll ever know why something happened. I don't need to know, I don't think, but I need to know what I can handle so I don't get hurt in the future. But I think part of not getting injured in the future is figuring out why I get so many issues with my right foot. Because before New York City Marathon, I didn't have a fracture, but I had pain in my right foot. And then I had bone bruising. So I get way more callus on the right foot than I do the left. It seems like there's something happening of just that foot is taking a lot more pounding than the left. So I'm going to predispose myself to an injury.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to go to get like a form analysis or go see someone, who specializes in kind of figuring out the body as a whole?
Yes. So I am. I would love to be there ready, but I can't really go on one of those fancy machines until I can run.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see a physical therapist next week. And hopefully by the time that he's like figuring out, because there's other things to work on before I get on the machine, but what is, like imbalances, like you said, or maybe a leg length discrepancy or mobility issues. I know that I don't have great mobility in my ankles and toes, which can predispose to a fracture too. So
yeah, for sure.
There's a lot to work on.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing. And I can only say positive things about UVA Speed Clinic if that's within reach for you. It probably is closer than going all the way over to Oregon. But I've been down there 3 times working on my form, and they're great. And it is actually Jay DeSherry's original location. So just a little thing there. And just one more thing to kind of wrap up. It's very easy when you do go to that lifestyle of being a pro to kind of struggle to find the balance between running being something you enjoy, like you kind of had it, like you said, early 2017 as just, I'm going to do this because I want to do it for me. And that kind of expectation of I'm a professional now, I need to get some results. I don't want to be a one-hit wonder. How do you plan on kind of staying balanced as you move forward?
It's something I really need to work on because I'm definitely not there. I think everything was fine basically until I came home from Kenya, and then now being injured and, I'm getting paid to run and I can't run. And then people maybe are unhappy with that, and other people like want me to do other things, like even at New York City half, like there are expectations, but I can't run, but I've signed up to do this race and they flew me in still, and it's like, oh goodness, there's a lot of pressure, I think, to make everyone happy, but at the same time, like, you shouldn't make everyone happy, you should make yourself happy, right? Nice. So I think that is definitely something I need to figure out, because there's like, things I can take from the injury. It's figuring out, I've got a little bit better sense of what I can handle now, which is less than I did training wise, right? Because that's part of the reason I got hurt. I can build myself back up stronger, fix some mobility issues and just some strength, probably like I do really well. I love lifting heavy, but I don't like the little PT exercises, right? So do those better. And then figuring out like, how much I can handle from the PR side, or just doing these events or activities and keeping it about me and the running and the love for the run, not just sell myself. So, that was definitely something I need to figure out because I'm not balanced at the moment.
Well, hopefully you continue to do so. And I think a lot of it comes down to kind of, like you said, thinking about yourself and realizing that, all this support and all these people love you and support you. But at the same time, the people that you love and care about couldn't care less whether you were a runner or not. And they're the people that really matter. And I'm sure you're going to, get this over time. And it's something that is probably a big adjustment just because of the way you were like thrown into this so suddenly. But no, I have full faith in you. And I know you've got a huge army of supporters who are going to be there for you no matter what and no matter where you are. Now we're just going to take a moment to thank our sponsor, and we will be back with the Running for Real 4. I've been talking about Body Health Perfect Amino for years now, and now I'm getting back into running again. Guess what the first product on my list to remember to start taking was? Yep, Body Health. All you need to do is take 5 to 10 Perfect Amino tablets. I like the tablets, but you could also use the XP powder at some point in your day, leaving a little time after you eat to make sure your body absorbs it correctly, and then it will get to work helping your body repair between training runs. Many of us have a goal of getting everything we need from our food, but let's be realistic. with our hectic lives, we barely have time to squeeze in a run. So making sure you stay on top of eating foods can be even more of a challenge. Perfect Amino contains the 8 essential amino acids the body needs to support and maintain all its systems working as it should. And the essential acids, amino acids, are in the exact proportion needed for the body. There's a reason they have so many positive reviews on their website. I love them, especially when I have a big race in mind, and the idea of not being able to do it because I was under-recovered or even worse, injured, terrifies me. Hopefully you enjoy them too, and you can get 10% off at bodyhealth.com using coupon code TINA10. All right, Allie, just 4 more questions for you, starting with a unique nutrition tip or something that you use in your training that others may be interested to hear.
Well, I think I gave this away earlier, but that dessert I love is baked sweet potato, peanut butter, and caramelized banana. It sounds weird. It's so delicious.
How do you caramelize the bananas? In butter in a pan or?
Yeah, or I put coconut oil in a pan and put some cinnamon on top.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I will say to the listeners, if you do try it, make sure would you rather they tweet it or take a picture and tag you in it on Instagram?
Oh yeah. I love Instagram.
Okay. Tag Allie in it on Instagram. Okay. What about a running for real moment, a moment that only runners will understand?
I feel like that's all the social or pressure to be thin. And like, I'm just like everyone else that I go through the same confidence problems and trying to overcome everything that everyone else is trying to overcome.
Mm-hmm. I love you. Well, this is going to be a few weeks old by the time this comes out, but you did a Transformation Tuesday picture on your Instagram, which is, say just kind of making fun of people who do these kind of extreme things and showing, look at me now, look at me then, when you're saying that you're essentially the same person either way. And, it's all relative, really. So I encourage people to go check that out. We'll get your social handles in just a minute. What about, as if I even have to ask, a high moment for you?
Definitely New York City Marathon.
Okay.
Hopefully have a new one soon, but...
Doha must have been a pretty big high as well. You ran a 1:10 there.
Yeah, it's just there's really no one to celebrate with. I'm from New York, so I felt like that was... that's my place to shine. I want to go back to every New York City race because I feel like the people on the streets are my people, like my family's there, my boyfriend was there. That's like where I belong. So Doha was an incredible experience and I ran a great time. I was really happy with it. But yeah, New York City, that's a lot to live up to.
You had to hold your hugs and your high fives a few hours till you got home to use them up, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, what do you tell yourself when you're standing on the start line?
Yeah, I usually have a game plan I'm thinking about. So like, what am I going to do for that race? And what's my mantra? I'm like the person yawning on the start line. Like, oh, when is this gun going to go
That
off?
always happens. Yeah.
I remember before New York City Marathon, I was like, hey, is it too late to go use the bathroom? And they were like, yes, it's too late. All right. I'll be fine for the next couple hours. So, yeah.
And did you go either there or during the race? No,
I didn't go during the race.
Okay. It usually goes away, doesn't it?
Actually, nerves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, I want to pee just to get off the starting line. But no.
And what was your mantra for New York? Just out of curiosity.
I'm doing it. Like, this is happening.
That's cool. That's a good one. Yeah. So that kind of was like self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially, because, that kind of matches so well with the race that you ended up having. I'm doing it. Yeah.
Well, but I think that's what a mantra is.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Okay, great. Well, one more thing I like to ask my guests is to send me a photo of them in a power pose. Now, I've seen your power pose photo, so I know which one you can send, unless you have another one offhand. But will you send us that photo to put in the show notes?
Yes.
Okay.
I will.
Well, Allie, how can people find out more about you and follow you in the future? Add to your army of fans.
Instagram, yes. Kieffer Allie.
Kieffer Allie. Yeah. Spell that just in case anyone isn't sure.
KIEFFER ALLIE.
Okay, great. Thank you. As there are a million ways to spell Allie and Kieffer, I guess you could spell that a few different ways too. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. You have been an absolute role model to myself and so many others. Thank you so much for all that you do and for all that you continue to do with, body image and women's rights. It really is inspiring. So thanks for being the role model that you are.
Oh, thank you so much.
I absolutely love that she is going against this pressure to look a certain way. And I love that when I asked her if there was anything she didn't want to talk about, a question I ask every guest before I record, she confidently said, nope, I'm an open book. You can find everything we talked about today in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 56. And I hope you will consider checking out the Running for Real podcast series that I talked about in this episode. Today, I told you about the marathon training series, but remember there's also a beginners, coming back from injury, nutrition, pregnancy and postpartum, and mental training series. Next week, we're talking to Trent Stellingworth, and we're talking all about nutrition. He is one of the top experts in the world working with Olympians to get their fueling right, and he's going to help you get yours right too. So tune in next week, and until then, have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.